Hi everyone! Thanks so much for tuning in and welcome. This is another video in my Witchcraft 101 series where I'm discussing the elements. In the last video, I discussed the element of water, and in this video, I'm talking about the air element, its associations, and how you can work with it in your practice. If you enjoy this video, I'd love it if you would subscribe to my channel. The elements are the universe's energy in four basic states: water, air, fire, and earth. There is also a fifth universal power beyond the visible four elements, which is spirit. The elements are at the very foundation of nature and life and are the building blocks of witchcraft and magic. I'll be making a video on each of the elements, their correspondences, and how you can work with them. The air element is often seen as being more abstract and intangible than the other classic elements, because unlike earth, fire, and water, it has no permanent form. You can't physically see it or interact with it in the same ways as the other elements. Even though it's the most abundant element of all, because we're constantly surrounded by it, it seems to be the element people work with the least. I think this might be because the air associations are a little bit less obvious than those for the other elements. Air has a projective energy and is an active and masculine element. It represents new beginnings, the mind, memory, clarity, knowledge, wisdom, intelligence, logic, abstract thought, communication, truth, higher consciousness, divination, psychic work, intuition, inspiration, freedom, movement, breath, creativity, and the arts. It gives life to all things, moves them, and fills them. As such, it was considered by ancient healers to be a medium or glue that holds everything together. Like water, air is an element of movement. It is not anchored to the ground, but can rise up and travel around the globe. Air's energies can cause quick change, such as shifts in the wind's direction and fluctuations in temperature. It is essential to life because it contains oxygen, and it often works together with the other base elements. The air is lively and dances along our planet, causing the water to stir, the fire to breathe, and helps pollinate the plants for our earth. Air has a very symbiotic relationship with our ecosystem. Air allows sound to travel so that we can hear and communicate with one another through language. It provides oxygen for us to breathe, as well as the oxygen fire needs to light. Air fuels fire because without oxygen, fire can't light and burn. Air also creates an environment where birds and insects can fly. The destructive attributes of air come in the form of storms, especially tornadoes, as well as dangerously cold or hot temperatures. When sufficiently energetic, air can move water and extinguish fire. Air can both move earth in the form of blowing soil and be obstructed by it, such as when wind is blocked by the shelter of a cave. In the form of a soft breeze, however, air can be experienced as the gentle, reassuring whisper of the god and goddess. Air has to do with communication in the form of speech and being able to express yourself through your voice and speaking, as well as expressing yourself through art forms. It represents having collaborations and being able to connect with others like being a social butterfly. Air creates balance within our atmosphere, but also within ourselves. Air also embodies freedom because air creates a lot of space. In ritual, we use feathers, the wand, incense, and the bell to represent the air element. You could also use a staff, a censer, a fan, the besom or broom, and certain related crystals. You might focus more on this element when casting spells related to communication, freedom, truth, memory, travel, general luck, dreams and wishes, as well as for divination. It's the perfect element to work with during the fall months because the shifting of the seasons often requires us to look inward and assess our situation, to take a deep breath and let go of what no longer serves us, to communicate our truths, even if it's just to ourselves, and to set a new path for the future. Keep in mind, however, that the results of air spells tend to be short-lived and transient. The element of air is attached to the astrological signs of Libra, Gemini, and Aquarius. Those with an air sign require balance, and when they're blown off kilter, they can spiral like a tornado or fill the room with a chill. Of course, you don't have to belong to an air sign to work with this element, but if you do, you might feel more connected to it. You can bring the element of air into your spells by working with planets like the moon or sun when they're passing through these astrological signs. As mentioned in my video on water, the sun usually stays in each sign for a little over a month, while the moon is in each sign for only a few days. You can find calendars online that will tell you when the sun and moon enter into each of the different astrological phases. Each of the classic elements, water, air, fire, and earth, are associated with one of the cardinal directions. Earth's direction is east. In the pentagram, air is usually seen as being the upper left point, although some people will switch it and put it on the upper right point, where water is usually seen. The alchemical symbol for air is an upright triangle with a horizontal line going through it. The ruling planets of air are usually considered to be Jupiter, Uranus, and Mercury. When it comes to the air element, you can really pick any planet that is made up of gas, and there are quite a few in our solar system. Some of these planets are linked with air because they are made up of gases, while others are because they connect to the associations of air. For example, Mercury relates to communication, just like air, which is why during Mercury retrograde, people feel as though they can't speak or communicate properly. The main color associated with air is yellow. Blue is already taken by the water element. However, some people like to use a lighter blue for air and a darker blue for water. You can also use white or gray to represent air. There are certain crystals that correspond to air because of different things, like their colors or their clarity. Many yellow stones are related to air. Some of these include topaz, amber, citrine, jasper, agate, alexandrite, amethyst, aventurine, azurite, celestite, fuchsite, fluorite, selenite, mica, and all forms of quartz. Clear quartz can be programmed for any purpose, so you can really use it with any of the elements. Next, we have metals. The ones associated with air are tin and sometimes copper. For many people, copper can be considered to belong to all the elements, and different people will feel it goes more strongly with certain elements over others. When talking about correspondences, not just for metals, but for everything, you should use the ones that resonate the most with you personally. If you don't understand the reasoning behind using certain correspondences, then they aren't going to be helpful to you in your practice. It's all about what you connect that item to most, so always listen to your intuition. As I mentioned with the water element, one way to work with metals is to enchant your jewelry using the elements. Some people choose to enchant their jewelry using the element that corresponds to the type of metal that it's made of. Most of my jewelry is silver, so I tend to use the water element to enchant mine. If you want to enchant yours using air, you could use incense smoke and wave your jewelry through it, or go to a cliff top or somewhere that's very windy and hold the jewelry up to let the wind blow over or through it. Another option is to use a musical instrument like a flute or horn. Now let's talk about animals. I know a lot of people like working with animals in their magical practice and spirituality. You might see animals in meditation, dreams, or trance work, or work with their imagery like in oracle cards, drawings, or as little figures on your altar. In the animal world, the element of air is associated with all things that fly, from eagles to hawks to ravens. Outside of birds, air is also associated with flying insects like butterflies, bees, and dragonflies. Also, my favorite animals, bats. Although they don't fly, spiders are connected to the air element as well. I believe this is because of the way their webs are suspended in the air and how they will dangle themselves from a thread and allow the wind to carry them. There are quite a few herbs and plants associated with the air element, but one of the main things are petals and flowers, especially ones with a strong scent. Some of the other plants are agrimony, acacia, anise, aspen, benzoin resin, bergamot, bluebell, all citrus fruits, clover, dandelion, dill, fennel, frankincense, gum arabic, hazel, lavender, lemongrass, mastic gum, myrrh, oregano, parsley, pine, primrose, sweet pea, sage, vervain, violets, and yarrow. There are more, but I've already listed quite a few. A lot of the resins relate to the air element, so you can work with incense and making your own to match your intention. Before you use any of these plants in any way, please make sure to do your research and make sure they are safe. Some plants are okay to use in certain applications, but not in others, and even if they are safe to us as humans, They could be dangerous for other animals like our pets. For example, I know a bird's lungs can't handle smoke, so you wouldn't want to be burning incense if you have a pet bird. Some people also like to work with the energies of different air beings, such as the elementals, which for air are sylphs. There are also air fae, such as sprites and pixies, as well as angels if you believe in them and choose to work with them. Some people also consider spirits, like ghosts, to be connected to the air element because they aren't corporeal and lack physical bodies. It's often said that if you're working with these types of spiritual beings, you need to leave some sort of offering in return for their help, and that if you agree to do something, you need to actually do it. It's said that if you don't give some sort of offering in return for their help, that they won't help you in the future and could even go as far as to smite you in some way. In my video on the water element, I talked about the different kinds of water you can work with. Well, air doesn't really have different kinds, but instead blows in different directions. You can use these directional winds by hanging your clothes in the wind blowing from a specific direction to charge and refresh them, or use it to enchant your jewelry. You could also throw herbs or flower petals to the winds with your wishes, or just stand in the wind and let the air's energy fill you. These are the correspondences for the directional winds. Wind moving from the east provide helpful energies for new beginnings and improved communications. Winds from the south are energetic and passionate. Winds from the west touch matters of the heart, and winds from the north manifest improved finances and foundations. There are many different things you can do to work with the air element in your practice. You can use items I've talked about, like herbs or stones on your altar and in your workings, but there are other ways too. One of the most common ways to work with air is through incense. You can buy them already made for different intentions, or as I mentioned, you can use herbs and resins to create your own blends. You can choose ingredients that really resonate and call upon the air element in your working by using incense as a representation of air. Another great way to connect with air is through scent. Scent is connected to air and is the sense that creates the strongest emotions and is very tied to memory. You can use things like incense, scented candles, or perfumes, but you could also go outside to find natural scents. Things like fragrant flowers, new soil, freshly mown grass, the petrichor scent of the earth after a rainfall, etc. An easy way to experience the air element that is accessible to most people is walking around outside and enjoying the wind in your face and the natural smells. The element of air can be used in magic to create change through breathwork. Breathwork has been practiced for thousands of years by shamans, yogis, monks, nuns, and others who believe that breath is the most powerful tool available to them. In witchcraft, you can use breathwork as a conduit for magical energies. This technique is sometimes called breathing exercises and is a form of meditation where one focuses on their breath and uses it as a means of communicating with deities or the spirit realm. Much of the folklore associated with air encompasses weather magic and the wind itself. So another option is to work with weather magic. I don't have any experience with this as I've never really done it personally, so I don't have much to say about it. However, I do remember reading about sailors who used specially fashioned magic knots to bind stormy winds or release favorable ones. That seems pretty interesting to me. If you're interested in weather magic, I'm sure you can find more information online than I'd be able to give you. Air is very connected to the higher self, so traveling is something you can do too. This can either be physical traveling to learn and grow yourself as a person, or astral and spiritual traveling. Air is closely linked to divination, foresight, and psychic work as well. It's also about wisdom and intellect, so studying something you're interested in and learning more about it can pertain to air. This could be furthering your studies in your magical practice and spirituality, or in another subject you're passionate about. Air is connected to creativity, so you can also work on creating some type of art. This can really be anything from painting, sewing, paper crafts, crochet, designing jewelry, making dream catchers, etc. Anything creative that you enjoy doing can be considered working with the element of air. A great one would be to work in your grimoire, book of shadows, or witchy journal. You can also use certain instruments in your rituals, such as a flute, horn, or even singing bowls to incorporate the air element. Dancing and singing are great ways to get the body and lungs involved in connecting to air as well. Air isn't as tangible as the other elements. We can easily collect a cup of water, touch the earth, or light a fire, but although air is ever present, we never actually see it. We can see it in relation with other things, like seeing the clouds blow across the sky, leaves blowing in the wind, or in smoke when burning something. But the air in itself is invisible. So when it comes to the air element, it's really all about getting creative. If you don't do a lot of work with tools and materials, you can also visualize the wind and the colors associated with air. I hope you found this video helpful and learned something new. If you want to stay up to date and be notified every time I upload a new video, hit the bell notification icon. I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel and help me reach my current goal of 1,000 subscribers. You can also like the video and leave a comment down below. Thanks so much for watching. Blessings.